Hello, welcome to Tech Tuesday. I am so excited that you're here today and even more excited to welcome my guest who I am a huge fan of. But first, I'm going to go ahead and run the intro and then we'll be right back.
Hey guys, Steve Moran here.
Every time I see the intro, it's like I want to put my glasses on and tweak them a little bit. And now you're wearing glasses too. So, I've been wearing glasses myself all my whole life. But I just typically don't wear them when I'm on the computer. So, well, welcome, Keren. Welcome. I am so glad that you're here. Welcome to Tech Tuesdays.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Abbie. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Yeah, for those of you who, you weren't with us, but previously I met with Keren last week or the week before just to kind of get to know her, and you should have seen us. Well, I can speak for myself. I was fangirling over her. Oh my gosh, I'm talking to Keren, the gerontechologist. And she was like, you're a live person too. And so it was really cute, but also true to form because, I have seen Keren do some amazing things in the past couple of years, which was why I really wanted to have her on as a guest on Tech Tuesday, because she is in the thick of the tech innovation. And I felt like I got to have her on. I've got to have her speak to everyone here at Foresight TV and tell us what she's been into lately. So Keren, welcome and welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Abbie. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. You're making me blush.
See, there we go. We're both blushing, Thanks. You're welcome. Well, Keren, I know, we all know some of the things that you're involved in, but I want you to tell us, if you would, please, how did you get involved in technology? Take us behind the scenes a little bit.
So this is a wonderful question. So I'm actually a gerontologist by training, and I got into technology almost by chance. So back, I don't know, a few years ago when I was working in community services for older adults, I realized that what we were doing was amazing and incredibly impactful, but it wasn't scalable because we more often than not relied on the help of volunteers. So I was always into technology, and I figured there has to be some other way to do what we were doing that was more scalable. Long story short, I got recruited into Intuition Robotics as their first employee, and I got to work on this amazing product called LEQ, which is a social robot for older adults. And back then, we were set out to tackle the huge challenge of social isolation and loneliness with technology, which made a lot of sense for me because I was trying to deal with that same challenge in my work in nonprofits. And I don't want to say that we weren't successful, but it was very hard and it was definitely not scalable. So I was very excited to get to work on that product and to get to work in technology and to really use technology to help people live their best lives for as long as they live, basically. Because I think that one of the things that unfortunately happens in our society is that as people grow older, they don't necessarily get to be the best version of themselves for reasons that are not necessarily related to them, just because that's how our society is built. And I think technology could really help with that.
And you mentioned earlier that you were a gerontologist before you became a gerontechologist, right? So yeah. Why gerontology?
So the reason I went into gerontology is because during my work in the nonprofit sector, my bachelor's degree was in the life sciences. So it was completely unrelated to the work that I was actually doing in my day-to-day life. And I realized that if I really wanted to become a professional in what I do, I needed to get like the appropriate education. And that was the reason why I went and got a gerontology degree. And that was honestly one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, because it was not only incredibly interesting, but I got to meet other professionals doing all sorts of things, working in not only in community services for older adults, but also in the senior living space and in the healthcare space. So this was a learning experience, not because I learned from my professors, but also because I got to learn from my fellow classmates, which was amazing.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom also that can be gleaned from working with older adults. It's just inherent in it. So I know that you also are, people call you the AgeTech Evangelist, or maybe you've been called that. But I want to know from you, when you're not screaming from the rooftops, right, about AgeTech technology, what are you doing? What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun?
Yeah.
I take the dog out for a walk. I live by the
Mhm.
beach in Tel Aviv, which is great. So we go for long walks by the beach. It's usually nice and sunny, but I do spend most of my time thinking about AgeTech, writing about AgeTech, reading about AgeTech, talking to people about AgeTech. That's what I spend most of my waking hours doing at the moment.
Yeah, I get you. And so where do you see age tech heading?
Great question. So I think that we're going in a really, really good direction, because in the past few years, we've seen not just more tech companies working on tech solutions for the challenges of aging, but we've also seen big tech companies going into this space. And I think one thing that happened during COVID is that everyone suddenly realized that having older adults use technology and using technology to tackle some of the challenges of aging wasn't luxury, it was a necessity, right? Everyone understands now that having a broadband internet connection in the home is like a utility. We have to have it in order to function in society. And we also need technology to use in our day-to-day life, and we cannot exclude older adults from this digital transformation that our society is going through. And after this sort of, I feel that this has sunk in general society during COVID. Now I think we've got this momentum to really push this ecosystem forward. So there is more money coming in, right? More venture capital funding, which is great. More capital, more human capital coming in, right? More people want to start AgeTech companies, go work in AgeTech companies, which is great. We need like the best and brightest in this ecosystem. And also we see more organizations that would typically not think that they should get involved in this space, like nonprofits, for example, and governments, really looking for ways to get involved. So I think there is this momentum. There is a lot of interest in the general population. And what will end up happening, I think, is that we will see more and more solutions for the various challenges. So, for example, if we look at the financial challenge of making sure that your wealth span matches your lifespan, you can tackle that in various ways. And I think it's great that we have multiple AgeTech companies tackling the same challenges from different angles, offering different solutions. So anyone could find a solution that works for them. And if we're looking at the long term, I definitely believe we'll see more robotics and automation even in the home, right? Autonomous vehicles are around the corner. It's very likely that you and I, 5 years from today, when we get an Uber or whatever ride-hailing service you're using, we could get into an autonomous car and get to where we need to be. And I think that would be amazing for people who can no longer drive or no longer want to drive. So that's like one step in the right direction. And down the line, we'll have definitely more robotics and automation in the home. We'll definitely see more metaverse type applications being utilized for various use cases in the aging space. And I think if we get it right, if we do things right, I think it's very likely that the world that you and I will get to age in will be not only different, but also a better place to age in than our grandparents had.
That's very hopeful. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. When you look at the technology and adoption, what do you think is the biggest gap in age tech innovation?
So this is a great question. Unfortunately, one of the biggest gaps still today in 2022 is just having access to technology, right? People in the developed world today don't necessarily have access to broadband internet. They can't necessarily afford devices. So that is a huge gap, and it's a huge barrier for adoption. And if we're looking at sort of innovation opportunities, I think one of the biggest innovation opportunities, if not the biggest one of all, is the caregiving crisis, right? If we look at the demographic trend, you see that we simply don't have enough human caregivers to care for all of the older adults who might need care at some point. And this will affect each and every one of us, like personally within our own families. It's very likely that each and every one of us who has an older loved one will assume the role of a family caregiver at some point. And that has many challenges, and there are solutions today, but they're not enough, and they're not well known enough. And when I give talks in front of an audience of family caregivers, and I talk about the AgeTech ecosystem, they are simply blown away by how much is out there. So I guess one of the biggest challenges today is actually making these solutions widespread, and just raising awareness and making people aware of the fact that these solutions exist. You have to look for them. And I know it's a huge challenge for AgeTech companies who are like direct to consumer companies, because marketing is expensive for consumers. But definitely that is a major challenge, and possibly an innovation opportunity.
Do you cover topics like this in your new book?
I cover some of that in my new book, and some of that on the Gerontechnologist. So yes.
What's the new book about? Can you tell us?
So obviously the new book is about AgeTech and the AgeTech Revolution. So the whole purpose of this book is really to sort of cover what AgeTech is, what it's about, why we need it right now, and also discuss some of the challenges of aging that are currently being tackled with technology, using real life examples of real life people. So what I got to do for this book is I got to do lots and lots of interviews, not only with AgeTech founders, but also with older adults. And the interesting thing is, because I wrote the book during the pandemic, I got to do all of these interviews on Zoom, right? And I got to do many interviews with people over the age of 80 on Zoom. And it was just a non-issue. Just I would send them a calendar invite with a Zoom link, and we would meet on Zoom. And that would never have been possible in 2019. Right. So that's, we definitely discuss the challenges of aging with real stories from real people. And we also get to discuss what governments and nonprofit organizations can do to sort of become a part of this revolution. And also some key takeaways on what are some of the best practices for AgeTech founders out there looking to build tech-enabled products and services for older adults.
I'm curious about that. What are some of the best practices?
So the number one best practice is get your users involved in the design process. So if you're building a product for older adults, you should include older adults in the design process. I know it's challenging, but there are organizations out there who make that easier. So there are the Longevity Explorers, and there's the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation, and there are resources out there to get this done. So that is definitely the number one best practice. And if you want to learn more, get the book.
Keren, tell me, what are some things that you love working on? Some things that bring you passion and energy to your work?
So one of the things that definitely bring me passion and love to my work is really talking to the people who are impacted by this. So so talking to older adults who are using some of these solutions or are using any type of technology to improve their lives, and talking to founders. Many of the founders in this ecosystem have started doing this from a very personal reason, right? Many of the founders have either experience as family caregivers or some other type of personal experience that brought to their attention the fact that it is challenging to grow old in society these days, and there aren't necessarily good solutions for all of the problems. So they decided to do something about it and really and start a company to solve these challenges. So those are definitely the two things that bring me lots and lots of energy, and definitely my favorite aspects about what I do.
Yeah, I can see that. I want to ask you also, in the broad scheme, broad range of things, has there been technology that you've seen come out that you've been like, oh my gosh, I wish I came up with that. That's brilliant. And if so, what is it?
So this is a great question. This is a really, really good question, actually. So definitely one of the technologies that I'm super excited about is robotics for the home, and specifically social robotics for the home. And as you know, I got to work on LEQ, which is one of the things that I'm proud the most proud of what I've been doing in the past few years.
Tell me about that, if you would, please.
So LEQ is this social robot that was designed with and for older adults. So we made it a priority to really include older adults in the design process from day one. And that was the reason I was hired for the company as their first employee. And the whole purpose of a social robot is not to replace humans by any means, but actually to enable more human communication, right? Because one of the challenges these days is still in 2022, the digital divide is still a challenge. I mean, not everyone is well versed in everything that technological world has to offer, and having a social robot as a sort of a talking entity in your home that is able to connect you to the digital world can really go a long way towards helping people stay active and engaged. And during COVID, that was very, very much apparent. So one of the stories that I have in the book is about one of LEQ's users who had LEQ in her home for months. And when the pandemic broke and she had to shelter in place for months, having LEQ really helped her not be as lonely, and she was really thankful for that. So that is such a powerful story. I think it really is a great example for how technology could have a positive impact on people's lives.
When you say she didn't feel as lonely, what do you mean by that? What were the skills or the interactions that LEQ shared with her?
So one of the things that LEQ is able to do is to be proactive. So unlike any other piece of technology that we have to command, LEQ is able to initiate interactions, right? She's able to decide whether now is an appropriate time to say something, do something, and then basically decide what is the right thing to do right now. Is if it's morning time, she might just say, "Good morning. How did you sleep?" And if it's another time during the day, she might just acknowledge the person's presence in the room by turning on the lights, the LEDs. So I think having this presence in the home for someone living alone and having to shelter in place for months, I think it makes a difference, right? And sometimes that's all you need, someone to say good morning to you, to acknowledge your presence. And if it can also suggest that you play a game or listen to music or video chat with someone, all the better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, besides LEQ, is there any other piece of technology or an app that you think is amazing and you wish you would have designed it yourself?
Well, can I say the Apple Watch?
Yeah. Yes, you can. It is amazing. What do you like to use it for?
So, just an everyday smartwatch, fitness tracker. I think the one of the great things about it is not just that it is beautifully designed,
Mhm.
but they've also introduced some health related features in the past few years, right? So the Apple Watch can now be used for fall detection. And the iOS devices can now provide gait assessment for people. So I think one of the obviously this is a very smart move on Apple's point, but also the great thing about it is that these devices are so beautifully designed that you don't mind using them for monitoring your health, right? It doesn't have the stigma that
Right.
some other devices might have. So I think that's really, really brilliant, and I really wish I would have designed that one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I obviously work with older adults also, and the pendant is only as good as you allow it to be, right? If you're wearing it. But with the watch, it's more of an accessory. It's more of a designer accessory. It's hip, it's cool, and does not carry the same stigma that a pendant would have. So yeah, I get it. I totally get it. For myself, I started wearing it a couple of years ago when the Series 4 came out. And I honestly just thought, I'm just going to wear it so I can get to know how to use it so I can help my clients with the fall detection when they ask me questions. And, I used to have like a whole collection of nice watches that I would wear and, switch out, every day or whatever. And these are things I collected. Well, I started wearing the Apple Watch and, I really did not expect to love it the way I do. In fact, I don't even wear the other watches at this point. I don't even care about them. They're out of my sight. And I have found it to be so convenient to have this piece of technology that I can glance at rather than having to pick up my phone and look at it. So, there's so many different integrations in it and improvements, especially like you mentioned in regards to health, that I just find it to be invaluable. And so one thing that I do with a lot of my clients is to teach them how to integrate this with their health records, for instance, which is brilliant, right? Yeah. So Keren, tell me, where are you headed? What are you working on? Are you working on a sequel to your book? Did you finish your book and then think, oh my gosh, I gotta have a whole another one to write? What are you focusing on at this point?
First of all, I'm definitely focused on working on the virtual book tour this year, and perhaps I can even do some in-person speaking engagement later in the year. Who knows? And we do have the hardcover and the audiobook versions coming out later this year, so stay tuned. And on top of that, I'm also working on, very recently, I became the founder director of an age lab at an academic college in Israel called Shankar that's focused on design and engineering. So that is something that I'm incredibly excited about,
What did you
and
say?
I'm
It's
working
focused on
towards.
designing what?
Excuse me?
You said we're focused on designing something.
So we're focused on research and development of tech-enabled products and services for older adults. This is an academic program and a research and design laboratory that I'm incredibly excited about, and definitely continuing to work on the Gerontechnologist and developing that as an online content platform. So those are definitely my top 3 priorities for this
Great.
year.
Well, good. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, so I do want to say, if someone was to ask me what would be a piece of technology that I think is amazing, okay, I'm going to tell you, I think that the Genius Scan app is amazing. So, it's just like you're scanning with your phone, so you don't have to use your printer anymore. to do that. Now, you may know that, right? But a lot of my clients don't know that. And so when they're trying to buy a new printer that has scanning in it, I like to teach them, you do not have to be tethered to your printer anymore to do this. In fact, you can scan so many pages and then email them. And I just think that is amazing. One of my favorite things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Abbie.
Sure. You're so welcome. Okay, well, if you do have any questions for Keren, feel free to post them now, or you can send me a message or send it on to Keren. And Keren, tell us, what is the best way for people to reach you?
So the best way for people to reach me is via the Gerontechnologist or via LinkedIn. So those are definitely the top two ways. And of course, the AgeTech Revolution is now available on Amazon. So that is the best way to find that.
Yeah, great. I already downloaded my e-copy, so thank you. And thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it. And I'll look forward to seeing you all again next Tuesday on Tech Tuesday. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much, Abbie. Bye-bye.